And welcome in to our official post-game show here on WOWK 13 News. An exclusive presentation of the 13 Sports Zone. Jake Siegel here alongside Cassidy Wood.
Hey guys.
And if you just watched us just a little bit while ago on broadcast and you saw we just wrapped up our first week of high school football here in the Mountain State.
Yeah, so exciting. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainties out there right now, but to have one in the books, one officially in the books, is pretty exciting.
It's big. And week 2 of Ohio football also coming to a close. So Ohio's off and running. West Virginia now officially off the gate. And Cassidy, you know, I know you're not new to our station, but you're new to the sports department. So
yeah.
What are your initial impressions just shooting some Friday night football again?
Oh man, it was so exciting to be back in a gridiron. You know, my previous job before this, I was down in Texas, so small town high school football, small town Texas, it was a big deal. So to be up here and bring what I learned down there up to here, hopefully I can, you know, help out the team and, you know, yeah, just meet a lot of new people. It is a little bit weird not knowing any of the coaches or the athletic directors or anything, but I'll get to that point for sure.
We'll get you there. And, you know, the first game you started out tonight, it was your live shot in which we previewed the MSAC rivalry between Hurricane and Huntington. Now, that on paper, it seemed like a good game. The final score, it depends. It depends if you like high scoring or if you like low scoring. And if you like low scoring, that was really a good game for you to see. And luckily, we were there too, so we'll have the highlights. Let's see if we can bring up that Hurricane-Huntington game. There we go. So, Cassidy, our first game underway. We're going to pick this one up. We're scoreless in the second quarter. Huntington quarterback Gavin Locho scrambles to his right, and, man, he makes a throw that's a little behind his receiver, but what a catch right there by their receiver, Devin Jackson. Now, later on, it would be Amari Felder who gets the handoff right here. He goes into the end zone, and just like that, it's a 6-0 lead in favor of Huntington. But in the second quarter, Hurricane would start getting going here, Cassidy. We see Ismael Barrero going to give a handoff right here to Tyrone Washington. He's going to break a couple of tackles and gets thrown out of bounds violently, but that would set up this. And it's the same connection, but this time instead of on the ground, it's through the air. And it's Washington with a beautiful, beautiful touchdown catch right there. Hurricane would take a 1.76 lead right there. And Cassidy, they would go on to win 21-6. So it was funny. Before this game started in the offseason, I had a chance to ask Hurricane head coach Jeremy Taylor his thoughts on playing Huntington in week 1, and he said, I'd rather start with anyone else but Huntington.
Why?
He said Huntington always plays well at home, which they have a history of doing, but for Hurricane to come out, go on the road, make a statement win, and start the season off 1-0, big win for Jeremy Taylor and his guys. Yeah,
and I know I did speak to a lot of the parents, you know, of the Huntington players before the game started, and they were a little bit nervous because they do have a younger team this year. So they were a little bit nervous about that, but it ended up being good for them. So
yeah, you know, why don't we hear from those parents?
Well, there's a lot of different things. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty with COVID and stuff like that, but pretty much every parent I spoke to quite a few, and they all just congratulated the team and the staff over at Huntington for doing such an amazing job. You know, like I said, it's just so uncertain right now, and with football, there's a lot of things that people are unsure about, and so to have an organization like Huntington, all the parents commended the entire staff there for everything they've been doing to keep the kids safe and get them some sense of normalcy back in their lives.
Yeah, and you did a story. Let's hear from some of those parents.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be here. I know my husband is excited.
Very excited. I'm glad, you know, they're going to get this game in. They've prepared, you know, since springtime.
It's been a long awaited. These kids have been so excited to get out of quarantine and get on the field.
They worked extremely hard. Coach Seal and his coaching staff has done a terrific job. I actually had the luxury to kind of sit and watch them through this whole pandemic, through all the procedures and protocols. They did a fantastic job of keeping the kids safe. Because these are our jewels. And so kudos to the program.
It feels so good to see them all out here and being kids. You know, there's been a lot of anxiety and them not being able to do things that kids do, so it's great to see them out here just being able to be a kid again.
It is so important. It is. I mean, we have a good family unit, but you know, football has always been like another family.
Every day it's a worry, so, but I'm just happy they're out here. It's a beautiful night, so I'm glad we're ready to rock and roll.
Go Highlanders!
Go Highlanders!
Now get on my face, COVID.
Oh man. Yeah, that one was definitely my favorite.
That was good stuff right there.
Yeah.
And, not far from Huntington High School is Spring Valley.
Spring Valley, yeah. So let's take a look at some of the Spring Valley Portsmouth highlights, if we can pull those up real quick.
Yeah, and Cassidy, Spring Valley was a team we did a preview on during the offseason. They were ready to roll. They were happy. They were hosting a pretty good Parkersburg South team. So good stuff.
But this score, I mean, you were talking about Huntington and Hurricane like a low-scoring game. This was quite the opposite. The final here being 42-7, I believe. Yeah, and so we're looking at some highlights. This arm that this quarterback has here, it's amazing. Jack Roy right there, just dropping it down the side to Hank Hitchman, obviously getting the crowd pumped up there. And now 28-0, and he's running up the side and. Oh, and it's a fumble. And that won't be the only fumble of the night here. We actually, in our highlights, we're going to see a second one right here. And sadly, it was quarterback Jack Roy. He throws another Hail Mary pass right here, tries to get it up the side as he did before, but unfortunately, that one is going to be picked off by Parkersburg. So as I mentioned, the final there, 42-7, Spring Valley with that win. So, and 28-0 at half, so they were able to manage to put up, 2 more scores in that second half. So
pretty big statement game, I would say, for Spring Valley. Come out of the gate with the win. So, you see your one Huntington team lose, the other one win.
Yep.
And they split, and they're only 7 miles apart. So good for all these teams to open up safely in the way they're able to play. Pretty good stuff. But we're not just focusing on AAA here. We've got single A too. We had a pretty good one between Ravenswood and Buffalo. We're going to take you out there right now and bring up those highlights. Basically, these two teams going in opposite directions right now. You look at Buffalo early on, it was scoreless, but their running back right here takes a nice gain, putting the team deep inside the red zone, as you see right there. And that was Chase Lovejoy. Later on right here, it's Jackson England. He keeps it himself for the 1-yard keeper, and Buffalo goes on top 7-0 following that score. They would actually add a safety before the end of the first half, and they'd make it 9-0. But they would go on to win. The cheerleaders all pumped up as well, all masked up as well. Want to mention that. Proper social distancing required at the game. 21-6 the final. Buffalo coming up with a big win, Cassie. 21-6. Good for them to start with a victory at home.
Yeah, and I love those colors too, man. The blue and the gold. Can't go wrong with that.
No, you can't at all. And, not just those types of games. A lot of other games as well going on. But there was a situation that happened today that was pretty bizarre.
So bizarre. I don't think I've ever heard of a sports team having a game and going to the game and then having to leave. You explain a little bit.
Yeah, so
crazy.
Basically, in short, we all know that there's been a lot of confusion with the state's color-coded COVID-19 map. Mm-hmm. One day your county's in green, the next day you're in red. It's so hard to track. And normally the governor releases it around 9:15 on Saturday night, and then you're quote-unquote locked in on whether or not you can play.
Right.
So this situation unfolded at University High School in Morgantown today. And in Mon County, at 2:30, they found out they were in the red. But since they were in the red, they weren't allowed to play. So they were playing Parkersburg South. And then all of a sudden, Cabell Midland was going to scrimmage Fairmont Senior, right? They were at the game at Fairmont Senior, getting off the bus. Then Luke Salmons got a phone call and said, hang on, we could have you play a real game against Parkersburg South. So got everyone back on the bus. And Coach telling us, well, it's been a wild day.
I could write a book about this week in general. We thought it was dead. I mean, we thought we were playing, and I get a call right before we're getting ready to take the field. And, so I always said we'll play anywhere, anytime. So it's just a world we live in today, right now. And so it's not ideal to travel all day and do this, but who cares? It's about the kids, so we'll do whatever we got to do to get on the field. So.
And of course, the final there, the Cabell Midland Knights 69 and Parkersburg 34. So putting up almost double.
So do you think they minded the long road trip of going to one school, coming to another?
Clearly
70
not.
points.
Yeah, almost 70 points. That's wild.
That's unheard of for a high school football game. And the fact that they did it while traveling, just got to give hats off to Luke Salmons and that coaching staff right there.
That mental toughness, I guess.
Kind of like he said, he's willing to play anyone, anywhere, and they did that tonight, and they did it in dominating fashion.
Proved it.
Let's not forget, Cabell Midland was in the state championship game last year, but they lost to Martinsburg. So you could tell maybe some revenge of just getting back and hitting somebody else was certainly a factor.
Mm-hmm.
And, Cassidy, we had some other games as well. Before we get to Ohio, though, I just wanted to get your thoughts quickly on the West Virginia action you saw tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I went out to actually Wayne, and we'll give you guys those highlights probably tomorrow or something like that. But with Wayne, for me, it was very interesting because it was a very low-scoring game. I mean, we went into halftime, it was 6-0, and I even stayed for a little bit of the third quarter just to see if maybe they would put up a little bit more points. But no, they just sat there right at the 50-yard line for most of that game. But I love those kind of that nitty-gritty football. Especially in the grass out there. It's a great time, and the weather was perfect, beautiful sunset, and yeah.
So it's fair to say you're a fan of smash mouth football.
Oh yeah, very, very big fan of the shotgun, run it, nitty gritty football.
Well, like you said, that's what we saw over at Scott and Wayne tonight. But Cassidy, we want to move to some of our Ohio games. We know that in Ohio, for the most part, in our viewing area, Ironton has been the dominant team. Last year, they went to the Division V state title game. Unfortunately, they lost, but they're out with some revenge. They've got an Ohio State commit on their team. They're running back and linebacker. This kid's serious, and Reed Carrico. And so are the Ironton Tigers. We've got some highlights from them tonight. They went out and played Gallia County at home. We're going to bring it up to you. It was actually senior night, and speaking of Reed Carrico, Cassidy, here he was. First time he touches the ball tonight, yeah, you figure he's in the end zone for 6, and suddenly Ironton takes a 6-0 lead. But Mr. Carrico, not done at all. He wants to make the Buckeye State proud. He bulldozes his way in right there. It's his second score of the night, and Ironton's second TD of the night. It'd be 13-0 right there. But this team is a dual threat. They may look like the Browns, but they play a big game. Taden Carpenter going to hit his man in stride, and just like that, Ironton smashes Gallia Academy. It was 21-0 into the first quarter. Ended up being 55-7 for the second straight week. Cassidy, Ironton puts up 50-plus points, 250 burgers.
That is ridiculous. And that last catch, too, was just amazing. I mean, off the tips. I don't know how some of these high school athletes can catch these balls.
I'll tell you what, Cassidy, it was drawn up really well. And Taden Carpenter, we did a story on him in the offseason. He's got an arm. He's a pretty good lefty. He's actually one of the top QBs in the country for the class of 2023. Showed it right there on that throw.
Yeah.
And I think another game that we were at as well, we had Portsmouth and South Point. Our own Lane Ball was at that one. And Lane's been patrolling our Ironton coverage since the season started. And Cassie, let's take a look at this one. Let's see if we can bring up some highlights. We know this obviously was a game both teams having a lot to think about.
Oh, yeah.
We know Portsmouth at this point and South Point at this point, still very new to the season. Like we said, only week 2 in Ohio. And
yeah, so we're going to go ahead and take these highlights from the end of the second quarter. The pointers, Malik looking to pass, and he was shut down, sacked back there. Now, Trojans managed to stay in the lead this first half, 24-14. Here in the third quarter, a pass that's intercepted and picked off, and he runs it down. The Pointers taking it over on... intercepted by Alex Lambert. Sorry, lost my place there.
That's all right.
And the Pointers taking over on downs right here. Still in the third quarter, Trojans have possession. Drew Rowe looking to pass. He made the throw, and it's intercepted again. So interception after interception, it looked like in this game, just kind of going back and forth. Now the Trojans did take home the W tonight with the final score of 31-14. Almost double again. I feel like the spreads tonight have just been crazy.
It really has. And we did forget one West Virginia game, but forgotten, but not really forgotten because we remembered it. So
best for last, right?
That's right. We're going to try to pop up the Parkersburg, excuse me, not the Parkersburg. We've got the Ripley Buchanan game. Let's see if we can bring that one up. This one was an interesting one, and it was really all Ripley from the start. I think a name we'll be hearing a lot this season is this guy right here. Check out the beautiful 16-yard throw right there from Ty Stevens to Joey Ramsey. He's a running back who caught that one. Now, like I mentioned, a running back, he's coming right for us. Check out that right there. It's a short little 11-yard touchdown run. It was his second score of the night right there.
Short, but like 5 people tried to tackle him.
Yeah, and take a look at this right here. From 1 yard away, he goes in again. That's his second rushing touchdown if you're counting at home. 1 receiving. But Cassidy, he's an all-around player. Look at this. Yeah. A pick 6 on defense.
Oh,
Are you kidding me? The kid does it all and does it well. Joey Ramsey. He was our play of the night. That right there was our play of the night. He's also our player of the night. Not sure that there was anyone else who had a bigger impact in their season opener than Ripley's Ripley player right there. Cassidy, you don't often see a player do it all, but I think tonight Joey Ramsey showed that he loves the attention and loves doing it well.
Yeah, he can play both sides of the ball. We hear that a lot, but I mean, I just think it's so crazy too at a high school level when kids can do that. They can play both offensive, defense, and be key players too. I mean, it's just crazy.
So all these kids, hopefully a lot of them dreaming to play instead of Friday nights, move to Saturdays, and Saturdays where as I like to say, it's where the big boys play. They play on Saturdays. The bigger boys play in the NFL, and blink twice, college football's here.
I know, and it's so exciting. You know, we have Marshall down the road, and there's been a lot of people are really scared that they weren't going to get college football this season, and I mean, it's still up in the air. Obviously, things are changing daily, but tomorrow is a very exciting day.
It is. The Herd will have their season opener, and they'll play Eastern Kentucky. And I know you mentioned things changing day by day. We know earlier, maybe last week, 10 days ago, Marshall announced that their game against East Carolina, we know significant because that was the game Marshall traveled back to when the tragic plane crash occurred in 1970 took place. Now, we know you did a story and definitely postponed. What can you share with us?
Yeah, so I actually headed out. I was in Huntington, about a week ago. Wow, time goes by quick. But yeah, I was out there last week, and I talked to the athletic director and some of the players on the team about having to reschedule that game indefinitely. Now, this game that they were going to travel to North Carolina and play ECU was supposed to be in remembrance of that plane crash that took the lives of 75 people 50 years ago. Tragic day. Of course, we all know the movie We Are Marshall, made after that plane crash. And so they were going to play the same game in the same place, travel, to the same stadium and do it in remembrance of them. But sadly, as we know, North Carolina, like many states, are still hot spots, still struggling. So unfortunately, they weren't able to go down there, and it has been suspended indefinitely. But tomorrow, they're playing Eastern Kentucky. So that's exciting at 1 o'clock.
Cassie, like you mentioned, the Thundering Herd, they'll face off against EKU at 1 in the afternoon at Jones C. Edwards Stadium. Now, Marshall is one of a few schools that haven't let, as you mentioned, the pandemic derail their football plans, thankfully. But the trade-off, of hosting the game, that means there's going to be changes. An Associate Director of Athletics, Scott Morehouse, tells us they're just trying to prepare to meet all the safety guidelines while still preserving that good old college football spirit.
Due to the state regulations and county guidelines and whatnot, we will have reduced capacity. We'll have approximately 12,000 fans in the seating bowl. Everyone will be socially distanced inside the stadium.
And, Cassidy, at this point, from what we know, groups are going to be limited to clusters of 6. Other changes include mandatory masks to get in the stadium, which must be worn at all times, and fans are not allowed to tailgate outside the stadium due to the pandemic restrictions. So if you won't be attending tomorrow's game but still want to get the rundown, we'll have all the highlights. Again, that's tomorrow night at 6 and 11 right here only on the 13 Sports Zone. We're going to hear from the team as well. Speaking of hearing from the team, we heard from West Virginia University yesterday when the Mountaineers announced their new quarterback, Jarrett Dagey. Now, Cassidy, he's a guy who started as a backup last year, came in, played 3 games, had 2 big road victories. But suddenly the Mountaineers, I know you're dressed in gold.
I know. Go WVU.
And they're back.
Yeah, it's super exciting again. And I hate to be like the Debbie Downer, but I'm just so bummed. I wish I could go watch a game. I mean, I just got here in December, so I haven't officially been in Charleston in West Virginia for a football season yet, and I was really looking forward to going up there to Morgantown and watching the Mountaineers, but sadly, I guess we'll just have to watch it on TV.
Yeah, and someone who watches them daily is our own Angelica Trinone, was part of our new Golden Blue Nation, and she filed this report earlier about their team's new quarterback.
WVU football officially has its season opening QB1. Junior Jarrett Dagey was named the Week 1 starting quarterback on Thursday. He started the final 3 games of 2019 and led the Mountaineers to a pair of impressive road wins over Kansas State and TCU. Dagey beat out last year's starter Austin Kendall, and Coach Brown said it came down to the final scrimmage. Now that the quarterback decision has been checked off, the head coach is focused on a few other concerns ahead of September 12th.
The first one is our physical conditioning. We're having to practice ourselves into shape, which is not the case in prior years because you have this intense 8-week summer lifting conditioning run by strength staff here. We didn't have that. So our kids aren't in the same physical conditioning they normally would be. The second thing is the physical nature of practice. We practice split squads for the first 2 weeks of fall camp. we really just started tackling and practicing more physical, and in really the last week to 10 days. So are we where we should be or want to be as far as tackling and blocking? Probably not.
You can get the full thoughts from the head coach on where his team stands 1 week ahead of that season opener coming up this weekend on our Mountaineer Game Day preseason special. So make sure to check your local listings for all the details. That's the latest on the Mountaineers here in Morgantown. I'm Angelica Trenone.
Wow, so just 10 days they've been practicing in pads. That is crazy, and just 1 week out from their first game.
It's crazy, it really is. And it's ironically enough, they're going to play EKU, the same team that Marshall plays tomorrow. So
that's going to be really, really interesting. Well, I think it's been a pretty good week one. What would you say?
I would say pretty eventful. Now, honestly, we only had, we only had 6 games in the state of West, maybe 5 games in the state of West Virginia tonight. We normally would have more, but obviously the pandemic, like we spoke about earlier, this is a changing day-by-day situation. Every single day, every other county that is in our DMA, or I guess our area, for more of a modern talk, they're just changing colors. And because of that, one day they can play, one day they can't. So we would have loved to bring you more highlights, but unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we're doing the best we can.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm pretty sure I walked into work today and I heard him go, "Oh my gosh, another one."
Yeah,
another one's gone.
That unfortunately are some of the worst words we can say, in terms of wanting to cover these high school teams and this high school football season. But our fingers are crossed. We're going to maintain a full season. I think week 1 went well. I think a lot of teams are happy. A lot of teams, like we mentioned, had to travel back and forth all over the map to get a game in. But
it makes for a good story, though.
It does. And also this, Cassidy, the one thing that I've noticed, the overarching theme right here, is these kids want to play. They'll protest to play. Their coaches want them to play. They understand the importance of playing. They also understand the safety aspect. And they understand the seriousness and gratitude and seriousness of the situation, I guess. What I mean to say is they understand that, but these kids want to play and they're determined. They'll do anything to play. And if they can keep that mindset and stay safe, hopefully we're in for a pretty good season.
I think it's really important for them to play. I mean, it's just, we keep talking about this uncertainty, but as a kid too, it's just so hard, especially in high school. You already have all these, obstacles that you're facing. So it felt very good for me personally to be back in a gridiron, but I know for a lot of kids out there too.
So. We've waited all year long for it. It's finally here. Yeah. And we hope that next week you come back and join us again and again. We'll be back on TV, our broadcast around 11:15 next Friday night. We'll hopefully have some more games to bring you. Same great highlights, scores, and sounds from week number 2, that is, of West Virginia, week 3 in Ohio. And, next week, believe it or not, Kentucky actually kicks off.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see some Kentucky football now.
We've got the Tri-State covered. And, again, for this show, we'll have this show up and running every Friday night as well. So it's been a good week 1, and I think that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Have a great rest of your night. And, again, Marshall highlights tomorrow right here at 6 and 11, only on the 13 Sports Zone.
Have a good night, guys.